Good morning, friends. Good afternoon, friends. I guess technically afternoon, depending on where you are. Hope you all are doing well. We'll just hang out for a few minutes until we get started. In the meantime, leave us a comment. Tell us where you are, where you're watching from. I believe if you leave a comment, by the way, the default is to just send that to me. So you might change the setting so that can be seen by the whole group. So let us know. Let us know where you are, where you're watching from, where you're at. Scott in Fort Worth, hope all is well down your way, my friend. Good to see you. Chris, good to see you. Ashley, hope all is well there. Kelsey down at DBU. Hope all is well with Connor and the crew down there. Chris and Dayton, love it. Got a few more minutes. Waiting on Jeremy as well. He's getting his stuff set up so we can get going. Michael in Ohio. We got Jeremy. Welcome to the party.
Hey, man. Good. Can you see me okay?
Yep. I may actually go switch my internet to make sure we don't.
I did the same. I'm on hotspot.
I want to make sure we don't lose that. All right, got more people joining. Guys, what we're doing, just hanging out for a few minutes till we get started. Let us know where you're from, where you're watching from, how your Friday is going. Again, when you throw your message in the chat, I think the default is going to be to just Jeremy and I. So make sure you change that to everyone so you can all see where you're from.
All panelists and attendees. Thank you, Ian, for telling us that we look good. I appreciate that, man.
A great chat with my friend Richie yesterday.
You don't, he didn't say what you said about me, Kevin, which I do want to bring up and talk about. Jerry Seinfeld, do you have that picture handy and prove it? Can you put it up?
Let's see if I have. I probably don't. It's probably just on Instagram.
But I was a little bit not, I've been told that my whole life. I look like Jerry Seinfeld. So, or my whole adult life, put it that way. When I used to have hair, now his hair looks like mine.
Well, interesting note with him. So so we watched his new Netflix special last night, right? Hey, Dave, hope you're well. Funny. Jared. And it was good. It was great. I didn't realize he is 66 years old.
Crazy. Legit. He looks good.
He's got a little bit of work done. That's all right. No shame. But he said that, and I was like, no, he's not. There's no way. In my mind, he's probably like 55. And I thought he was joking. But because he had rolled around on the ground at a previous time in the special. And then I, sure enough, Googled it. I'm like, he's 66. All right, man, game on. Good on you.
Good to have some good friends from around the world. Do you think Jerry Seinfeld will be on here? Will he be on our webinar?
Send an invite. So we'll see. Hoping that he can. So he said in his special, he doesn't have anything else going on. So we'll see if he joins us.
Yeah, we'll see. That's good. Tiffany, where are you calling from? Love to know.
Just down in Florida. Because I know Tiffany. I know that answer. Patty awesome. Spartanburg. Good to see you, Patty. You got James from Binghamton, one of my beautiful campus, by the way, up in New York. Love that place. Coach Gaylor down Jinx. Go Trojans. Good to see you. All right. Aaron, great to see you. Hope all is well in Vegas. Jeremy, we want to get rolling? We good? 101? Is that fair enough? Or we want to give a couple more minutes?
That's fair enough. You said there's probably about 400, 500,000 people on, you think?
I think so.
Jerry Seinfeld.
And Jerry Seinfeld. Yep, I love it. All right, well, friends, thank you for joining us. Kevin DeShazo, Jeremy Kubicek, for those who don't know us, Jeremy runs a company called Giant. They help build invincible teams around the globe. So as leaders get better, teams get better, and we have a global platform that enables leaders to grow in self-awareness and communication. He is the co-author of the book, The 5 Voices, which is what we're going to get into today. And I'm Kevin DeShazo. I do work with Giant as Culture Wins. So Culture Wins is the sports division, the sports brand of Giant, taking everything that Jeremy and the team have built and used around the globe, places that you may have heard of, like Google and the US Air Force and Chick-fil-A, down to construction companies and dentist office and oil and gas companies. I've been helping bring that into the sports world. So, Jeremy, how are things going your way?
Hey, it was great. And what's really crazy is this is probably one of the first times we both are in the studios. We actually, we have a Giant Studios that we're in, and this is where we do a lot of our filming. So you can see a lot of our different levels. Kevin's in the sound studio today, so it's like, it's good to be kind of back in. It's not a new normal, but it's definitely, good to be around live people for a little while.
That's right. Good to have. It's a different energy in the office with a few of us around, so it's fun. So today we're going to dig into the 5 voices, and again, it's more than a personality assessment. It's a communication system, and so Jeremy, as co-author of 5 Voices, give us some background before we dive in. Why the 5 voices? Where did it come from? What's the idea behind it?
Yeah, so for years, Steve Cochran and I had been living. I was living in London at the time. Steve's British, and Steve is a personality guru. He's really, really smart in the personality side. I spent most of my time in emotional intelligence and the leadership tools, and we kind of merged them both. And what happened was we started seeing all of these people being labeled. So people would say, "Yeah, I'm a high D. I'm a color, or I'm a this kind of a animal, or I'm a 7 with a wing 8." And they're all really good, but the problem was personality alone without emotional intelligence or applied learning it causes friction because you label people, you don't understand the context, and you don't carry it out into everyday life. And the biggest issue, it's too complicated. It wouldn't scale. So we took Jungian typology, and which is where Myers-Briggs came from, and we created a formula so that basically takes the letters in the form of personality, and we laid it out to say, look, you can be all 5 voices. We took 16, come down to 5, and then we have combinations so that when people go, instead of saying, I'm an ISTJ, if you don't know what that means, it's really you're a guardian nurturer. Well, a lot of people who take like Myers-Briggs, for instance, they'll go, yeah, I took it years ago. Let's see, what was I? I was a EFSF, and they can't remember. And then it's really awkward. And then they try to explain it, and then we've got an issue, right? Well, what we've done is go, no, you're a guardian nurturer are your foundational voices. You'll never forget that, but more than just remembering it, it's what do you do with it? And so we've learned to take personality, put it into communication, into relationship, into how you execute, into, stuff we're working on, Kevin. How do you actually use it for recruiting? Those types of things are really practical everyday usages. And that's what the 5 voices are. It's a system, and that, like you mentioned.
I love it. And it's a system that I've been using now for probably 5-ish years. And I'm a personality assessment, like, I love them, right? If it's out there, I've taken it. And again, as Jeremy said, I think they're all useful, but are they all usable, right? In terms of a team context. So I think anything that helps you understand yourself better is a win. We want to create systems and content and tools that you can actually use with your family, that you can use with your team, that you can implement and make sense. And so we've got, around the globe, we've got construction companies, you've got guys walking around a job site with a sticker on their hard hat. Oh, you're a guardian. Okay, now I know how to communicate with you. Because kind of a sign language that gives you, I love the way you explain it often, is you think of a plant and you get a plant and it's got that little marker that sticks in it. Like, this is how much sunlight it needs. This is how much water and when. That's basically a recipe for success for that plant. And it's the same thing with 5 voices. Once you know your voice, you know how to lead yourself better. But once you know the voices of those around you, that's just a recipe for help you successfully lead and communicate and connect with that person.
So let's use that illustration, and then if it's okay, let's just jump right in and I'll explain what they are and let people see it. Yep. So let's say this is a green. Actually, what am I doing? I happen to have a green plant on my desk here. It's not real, but it looks kind of real. All right, so a fern would need more water. Let's say this is a cactus. But you might have some employees for a cactus, they just don't need much water. This needs a lot of water. So by understanding those dynamics, it's really, really important. Well, every employee, every person, every student athlete, every child needs water, sunlight, and soil, nutrients of some sort. There's a code. Once you figure out what they need and who they are, they're a game changer. They can become engaged. They can perform at higher levels. But if you treat every plant the same, you're not going to have the same results. If you water every single plant exactly the same, you're going to overwater a cactus and maybe underwater a ficus tree. So what we're doing is giving you a secret to figure people out, and the secret really starts with you. You need to know yourself to lead yourself. So let's go ahead and jump in and kind of explain how we got here. And then, as we go, any questions that you have, feel free to ask and we'll get to them as we go. Does that sound good, Kevin? All right, that's so perfect. Let's jump right in. Let's jump right into what drives behavior. And what we found is people are complex, and this is really important to understand because a lot of personality assessments will label people, and it's just not true. We're bigger than that. We're all like snowflakes, right? We're very complex. So there's the nature of a person, and the nature of the person is what you are like at 14, 15, 16 years old. It was like, who are you born to be? Like, I'm an extrovert by nature. I was born as an extrovert. I'm a feeler. I know I'm more of a feeler. than I would be a thinker. There's certain things that I know were natural to who I am. But the upbringing in my life, my dad was an introvert. I worked on a farm. I was in a tractor cab with no radio. And I was 8 hours at a time on a tractor in our fields as an only child. Well, that nurtured upbringing affected my extrovert. It means I can learn how to do introvert. I can learn, my dad's a thinker, I'm a feeler. So I adjust to those things. And then the choices that are made, I moved to Russia when I was 20 years old, 21 years old. And I moved to Russia and started 3 companies. Well, those decisions all affect my behavior. And so it's really important to understand, like, some of you are playing someone on TV that you're really not. But the oughts and shoulds of your role mean that, like, for instance, we have one athletic director that we've been working with who's a nurturer, but who by role has to play pioneer. So by nurture, their behavior is pioneer, but at the core of who they are, they're a nurturer. And they've realized that, and now they're coming to terms with that. And it's just a really fun way to really understand yourself. So that's a little bit. Any thoughts and feedback before we show what the 5 voices are?
Yeah, I think what I've realized to be true is that most of us, if you were to say, like, hey, what plays a bigger role in how we live and act, I think most of us are living out of our nurture, not nurture or voice, but most of us are living out of the nurture of what culture has told us to be, what our parents told us to be, what we think a leader is supposed to be, which is why there's some tension and exhaustion in our lives, because we're not living out of our nature of who we were actually created to be. We're living out of who we think we're supposed to be. And so that's part of the goal today, is to help you find some freedom. Like, oh, this is who I am at my best, and that's good enough. I don't need to be someone else. I need to learn how to speak that language a little bit, but I can't live there. So our goal today is to help you kind of uncover and find freedom in nature.
So here are the 5 voices, and this is what Steve Cochran and I created. And it's a book. It's a great resource. It's also, we'll show you how you can take the assessment, and I'm going to give you an overview of it. So the 5 voices are basically nurture all the way to pioneer: nurturer, creative, guardian, connector, pioneer. You'll notice there's a decibel level, and the pioneer on the far right has the highest voice. That means they're the loudest, not just in volume, but in the way they speak, how they speak, when they speak, what they speak. It's very, very bold. But you'll also notice it's only 7% of the population. But that 7% of the population, a small group of people, but they make up over 50% of the executive ranks of the C-suites. So you think about that and you go, how interesting. All the way to the nurturer that make up 43% of the population. So the little nuances here that you need to understand, you'll see at the very bottom, they're present-oriented or future-oriented. 73% of the population are present-oriented. 27% are future-oriented. Now that's a big deal when you think about drama, you think about making change, sharing vision. We'll explain that in a little bit of the effects. Some of the issues that you have in your own leadership, if you're listening, might be that you're talking to a future-oriented voice or a present-oriented voice, and there's conflict and you don't realize why. Other things to be aware of on here: the nurturer, the majority, 70% of nurturers are female, and on guardians, 70% of the guardians are male. So guardians would be more in the military, police, accountants. Nurturers would be more teachers, nursing, moms. There's a lot, in those things. And by the way, when we say these things, we're generalizing. Okay, there's a lot of dynamics at play, and we help people, especially if there's a pioneering stay-at-home mom. There are issues because the oughts and shoulds in our society is that you should be a nurturer. And if you're a pioneer female, oftentimes there's all types of issues. And so it's just good to know. And that's really what we do by helping you figure out who you are. Again, by nature, we want you to know who you really are. Let me give you an example. By nature, I am a connector, creative, pioneer. All of those are future-oriented voice. when I was writing the book, I swore I was a pioneer. And so there's a tendency, especially for men in any leadership positions, well, I'm totally a pioneer because you're supposed to, and look what I've done. For me, I've started 24 companies, okay? And I'm 48 years old. Well, that's a pioneering activity in my mind. Pioneers do that. Like, actually, no pioneer would do that. Connector, creative pioneers would do that, but not a pioneer. Pioneers might start 4 companies, maybe. So it's those kind of details we want to help you understand who you really are by nature, and then by nurture who you become or think that you are. And we want you to really reconcile those so you become very, very confident and comfortable with who you are specifically. Kevin, any feedback before we go into the specifics?
Yeah, and I think a key thing to realize with any type of personality system like this is we're not going to tell you that a guardian is supposed to be in the military or police or an accountant, right? It's not about what role you're in, it's about how you play that role, right? And so for me, Jeremy and I are the same personality. I'm a connector, creative pioneer. My major was in information systems, which meant if I would have just sat behind the computer all day, like as an IT guy, based on creative connector pioneer, I would have lost my mind. I need to be around people. I need ideas and brainstorming. But if I had that same job with maybe a multi-site organization where I could be out and about interacting with people, doing some of that same work, playing that role in a different way would have a much different result and impact on my life. So we're not going to try to pigeonhole you into a role based on your voice. It's more of understanding how your voice shapes how you're going to play a certain role. And so as we go through this, think about who you are as your right hand, if you're right-handed, right? Because you got a right hand and a left hand. It's like if you say, Kevin, sign your name with your right hand, I don't have to think about it. That's naturally what I do. Kevin, sign your name with your left hand. I can do it, but it's not natural for me. And so as we go through the voices, be thinking, is that naturally me? Can I be that when I need to? Or I have no clue what that is. I have to really think about and learn about. So you've got a right hand and a left hand, right? So there should be some scale for you on these voices, but think about who you are at your best, not what you've learned to be, right? That's the key with any type of assessment like this.
So let's go through them. And what I'll do is I'll just share it with you all. And then Kevin, obviously add in any specifics that you've learned from the sports world and how it ties in. But the nurturer is basically they're the champions of people. They would be like the chicken soup for the soul. These are people who so care about people. They care way more about how people feel than profit, if you will. They're in an organization and you have experienced, let's say you were in a meeting and it was real defensive or real frustrating. They might come to you after the meeting and go, hey, Kevin, are you okay? How's it going? You all right? Everything all right? What do you need? Can I help you in any way? Because they really want to make sure that people are good. So they're the relational oil inside a family or inside a team. During mealtime, around holidays, you'll find them in over-serving, not sitting down. They also have the quietest voice. And so this relational harmony that they want, sometimes they won't share their full opinion, or they'll not think that they have a lot to say. So they'll be really, really reflective often, and they go, oh, you don't care what I think. And in their minds, they're just saying they're there to serve and to help. And again, this is 43% of the population. And so what they do is every voice has a weapon under stress, and the weapon of the nurturer is their natural tendency is to be a medic, to patch people up, to make sure that things are okay. But what will happen under stress to these voices, so these people, is they'll withhold care. So let's say Jim is completely blowing up and dominating other people that I care about, and I'm a nurturer. Well, the nurturer will just simply let Jim bleed out if he was ever in trouble. They will withhold care, and so that's what a nurturer does. For me, it's pretty low. It's my fourth voice, and we'll explain how all of this works. But Kevin, any nuances inside the sports world?
Well, and as I work with coaches a lot, we hear nurture and we think, I don't want that on my team. That's weak, right? I want winners. Nurturers are winners, right? They do want to win. They are extremely loyal. They're incredible teammates. They will make your team significantly better. And most coaches, when they learn this, they can think back to their years of like, oh man, I kind of blew up a few nurturers. I kind of pushed a few nurturers to the side and ignored them and didn't let them contribute because the way they operated, I saw it as weak, especially in a world that overvalues pioneers, right? We want people charging the hill winners. Nurturers will make your team better. And working with a lot of coaches who are realizing they are nurturers, or ADs who realize they are nurturers. And again, to realize that is actually freeing. So nurturers are unbelievably valuable. Nurture needs to stir up some confidence in themselves, right? When a nurturer becomes confident, they bring so much to the table, but it's also on us when you're communicating with a nurturer to also stir up confidence within them, right? Let them know you value them. Let them know that you see who they are.
So they want you to say basically, hey, I need you to value me. Take time to draw me out what I'm really thinking. Invest and believe in me, even if I struggle to believe I'm good enough for myself. Spend quality time with me, get to know me, and join me in caring for others. They want everyone else to win. If you have nurturers on the team, they can be amazing locker room athletes, and you'll see it all the time. But they also they will take care. In fact, I'm thinking of Blindside. Michael, he was a nurturer in the movie, and the coach was trying to get him to fight just for fighting's sake, and it never connected until what's her name? The mom comes up to him and says, "Hey, protect the quarterback. These guys are trying to." So the nurturer wanted to protect the quarterback, and that was the motivation, because he was taking care of those that are closest to him. So that's just an example of what a nurturer looks like. The next one is the creative connector. Now there's two. There's a creative connector, and we'll get into the creative pioneer. But the creative connector is the creative are people who basically value ideas and thoughts, and they have this overview of what things should be and how things should be like. So the creative sees the future more than any other voice, and they value this blueprint up here. They've got this idealistic way of how things should be. They're very focused on any movements or any groups or nonprofits or anything that's like is holistic, and they ultimately want these big ideas to take place. And so what happens then under stress, they can hulk out on people, especially if values are being ignored or people that they feel responsible for are being treated badly, or someone breaks a promise. So they need you to think and believe in their ideas. They need you to not judge what they say at first. They really, really want to make sure that you value their voice, or they're going to clam up. They're not going to share. So you have to give them space to dream. And again, this is 9% of the population. So a small group of creatives, but they can see things that most people can't see. If you have creatives on your team, you need them because they're like a canary in a coal mine. They can see pain and they can see gain. And so you need them to be able to do that job for you. But they can also be misunderstood because all of their ideas are up here, have a hard time coming out through the little hole that is their mouth because they get log jammed. And they have this process that they're wanting to happen. So Kevin, any thoughts?
Yeah, again, incredible teammates. We have to be able to sit and listen and ask questions because they're going to say things that like, are you sure? Like, I'm not sure that's real. I don't know that doesn't, they always have this, they get a weird response from us, like this blind stare. And then somebody else will have their same idea, like in the same meeting or 2 weeks later. And we're like, that's brilliant. And the creative is like, I said that. Like that's what I was trying to say. And I was like, no, that's not what you said. So we have to be willing to draw, because they have an incredible amount of gold inside. If we will sit and listen, say, hey, I heard this. Is that what you're saying? Nope. Keep drawing it out.
So the connector is different. The creative connector is different than the next one, creative pioneer. And those are the only two that are different. The creative, though, as a whole, sees the future, has big ideas. They're basically the difference between a feeler and a thinker. Creative pioneer has more of a cerebral idea focus, The creative connector is a little bit more focused on people, but it's the same premise. And so the creative pioneer will basically hold their cards and only share with people that they feel are competent. If they're not competent, then they'll hold their cards, they won't lay them down. But if they're belittled or badgered, then they'll pull out their sniper rifle and they'll take you out. And they'll take it out with sarcasm, with some sniping comment, and everyone won't mess with them. They're very hard to read, the creative pioneer. So if you're a creative pioneer, you're so envisioning what could be, and then you try to make it happen. They oftentimes can come across as awkward. They oftentimes can appear as arrogant. And so those are just realities that are a creative. So should we go on to the next one? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to realize one of the things with creatives is that they're perfectionists. It's like you could have a great end to a campaign or project or a game, and they're back in the locker room or in their office, like trying to figure out what went wrong. You're like, what went wrong? Like, we won. This went well. Yeah, but this part. And so they can easily kind of ignore the 90% that went well and focus on that 10% because they want things to be bigger, better, perfect. The perfectionist tendencies can kind of hold a creative back every now and then.
So the Guardians make up, again, 30% of the population, and they are very logical. They're detail oriented. They're the champions of like systems and resources, and they want to make sure that everything is buttoned up. So if you give a mature guardian will do things on time, on budget. They'll care for the money or the organization as if it's their own. And again, they're so logical, but they're black and white. So my wife is a guardian, so it's they have a hard time with playing until the work is done. And they are like A, then B, then C, then D, then E. Whereas other personalities are kind of all over the place, spontaneous, not the guardian. They're very, very detailed. But under stress, their weapon is interrogation. And interrogation comes out with, John, so you knew the budget was last week. Why didn't you? I know Sarah sent it to you. So it feels like an inquisition, because what they're trying to do is they're logically trying to figure out, is this a systematic issue? Is it a you issue? Is it a me issue? And that comes out as stacked questions. Again, interrogation, which could potentially force guardians to lose influence because people want to work around them if they're not aware. So oftentimes a guardian, they can be right and wrong at the same time because their tone and their tact might be a little bit off as they're trying to solve the issues.
And, we talk about being positive leaders and what's it like to be on the other side of you. Guardians think that they're positive. Right? If you ask a guardian, like, oh, I'm positive, it doesn't always feel positive on the other side of them. And so what I've realized, for me as a connector, creative pioneer, guardian is my fifth voice. So this is the voice that I struggle with interacting the most. And my best friend's a guardian. And so for years, we called him Deb for Debbie Downer. Because every time we're going to hang out, it's like, oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, it's too far. I'm like, good grief. Like, you're not fun. Why are we friends? But I realized what he's actually doing. Like, he's just thinking logically through everything. And he's really trying to get clarity. Right? So guardians, they're not trying to attack you. They're not trying to tear you down. They're trying to get clarity so they can actually commit and make sure it's a good idea so that we move forward on purpose. And so now, as I understand myself and this friend and other guardians, I have an idea or a question, whatever, and I go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Tell me how wrong I am. And they're like, really? Yeah, because I know you love me. I know you care about me, and you're not attacking me. You're going to help me either make a great decision or prevent me from making a terrible decision. And so to let them play at their best, say, hey, ask your questions, poke your holes, and then we can move forward once you're ready, because you're gonna help us complete the idea. So guardians, again, unbelievably valuable if we can have the right perspective, and for them as well, right? To have that self-awareness of what's it like on the other side of you. They've got to craft that critique a little bit better at times.
That's right. The next one, this is the best voice, right, Kevin? No, I'm joking. We're both connectors. So, but connectors have this like relational superpower, this network, but what they do is they're like translators. Picture a bee pollinating, and they're moving around constantly connecting with people. And what they do is they're wanting to make sure, hey, I've got a guy, you're looking for this, and they'll connect it up and they'll remember a long time from now. And so what they're doing is they're basically bringing big ideas to the team. So a connector loves it when you go, you know what, guys, we got this one dilemma. We need to find someone who ... The connector goes, awesome. Rolodex, Facebook friends. Who do I know? Who do I know? Perfect match. This guy can help this guy, and they come together. What happens though, their trigger can come out because if people take credit for their work, or they don't feel like, hey, if you do connect them and they didn't receive on the pat on the back or any recognition, it could be an issue. Because oftentimes a connector has a hard time separating their work from their identity. So if this is an idea, a traditional thinker, maybe even a guardian or a pioneer, might put the idea out here. What do you think of the idea? Shoot holes in it. And they shoot holes at the idea. Well, the connector has a tendency to put the idea right over their heart. And so all of a sudden someone shoots a hole, critiques them, and you see blood, primarily because the connector couldn't separate the two. And so that's part of the dilemma of us and our personality, but the strengths are equal.
And I think one thing I've learned as a connector, we have to be really disciplined in our communication, because we get really excited about everything. And so every week, every month, we're coming to the team, guys, check this out. And we're just excited about it, but people are hearing us commit to that, and then we don't. And then the next month we're excited about something else, and the next month. So a connector can be tuned out over time. Like, I don't worry about, this is just the flavor of the month. It'll be something else next month. You don't actually have to do anything. And so to my wife, the nurturer, right? She hears everything I say as promise. We should do this. And I'm just talking out loud. So she's learned to just let me talk, and she doesn't have to listen. If I'm talking about the same thing 2 or 3 weeks from now, then there's a trigger in my, okay, he's still going, right? This idea is still around. Now it's time to really engage and have a real conversation. But connectors have to really be disciplined with their communication.
And the weapon then is cyber warfare, and that's something that you have to be careful of. That means basically subtle slander. So if someone ticks off a connector, they'll have the ability to take out that person by maybe placing some distrust in other people. And it's just a reality. But it's a little different than the next one, which is the pioneer. And their superpower is strategic vision. They can see the future, and they're like a general, and they're very militaristic. They'll go, okay, taking that hill, got it. Lock in my resources, allocate my people. We got enough money, structure, systems, let's go. So if you're around the pioneer's table, then it can feel really invigorating and fun. But if you're outside that world, it can be ice cold, because it's like the pioneer's like, why am I wasting time with you? It's not personal, I'm just focused. And so that focused can feel, again, very invigorating if you're one of the core, but it can feel really hard on the other side. And their weapon often is the grenade launcher. And they'll say things like, if someone says something they don't like in a meeting, they'll go, all right, do you see what he just did? That's exactly what we don't want. All right, so anyone else? Next question. So the grenade launcher comes real strong and can blow someone up. And I have Steve Cochran, my business partner in this, and we created this content. He has a strong grenade launcher. I have a strong cyber warfare. We have to manage it. He's had to learn how to put the safety on. He's had to learn how to not fire the trigger when he wanted to gain perspective. And it's called patience, and it's called valuing other people's voices. So the joke of the liberation statement is, I don't need you to respect my competence. Don't judge me for being competitive and wanting to change the world. Invite me to help solve your problems. I love doing that. Encourage me to dream beyond what anyone else believes is possible. So those are examples of what a pioneer brings. Again, 7% of the population, but very, very valuable.
Well, and we think this is the American vision of a leader, right? This is what you see in movies. Right. This is what you see in books. This is what, when we talk about nurture, not nurturer, but the nature nurture choice, this is the nurture of American culture is be a pioneer. This is who we put on stage. This is who wins the day. And so most people feel the pressure to be a pioneer when that's not who they are, right? Again, only 7% of people. But a healthy pioneer is unbelievably valuable. They make difficult decisions. They make us better. They move us forward. And so you want a nurturer to have confidence, you need a pioneer to have some humility, and a team can really start to come alive. So pioneers are unbelievable leaders when they're healthy, and winning is the goal, but you want to help them win at a higher level, which means bring everyone else with you.
That's right. So yeah, so walk them through, Kevin. Show them how they can find out their voice.
So here's the deal. We went through that pretty quick, right? Like this sometimes with teams could be a 1 hour, could be a 2 hour, could be a half day, really, really going deep on this. But if you go to giant.tv/culturewins, it's our online kind of leader development platform. That link gets you free for 30 days. You can take the assessment on the platform, and then it has your personal coach. So you can, and I'm gonna just show you guys real quick.
Yeah, walk them through the dashboard.
What this looks like. So when you log into the platform, right, this is your dashboard. This is me. So it's got my voice right here. It tells me the strengths and challenges of my voice at the click of a button, and it's got videos to go with it. It's got your weapon system, what that looks like. Our foundational tools are all right here.
Kevin, show them a little bit of go to the Connect Your Creative Pioneer and
Yep.
click on that. And then what happens is, what we've done is we've basically shown you specific issues about yourself. What happens to you under pressure based on your personality? How will extreme stress take you out? How do you stay focused? How do you deal with conflict or recharge? Really, really meaty, practical, and specific to you. But as you watch them, can you go back up and show them how to edit the voice? So if you go to, if you watch it and go, you know what, that doesn't sound like me, then you edit your voice and you actually can look at all of the combinations. And you go, you know what, I thought I was a pioneer guardian, but I might be a pioneer connector. And just a subtle change of your foundational voices. And you start realizing who you really are versus who you've been playing on TV. So that's a fun process. And then you take that and then you start understanding the dynamics of those you work with. But we'll get to that here in a second.
And the key with that is, like, that's essentially your personal leadership coach, right? And one of my college roommates just got on there about 2 weeks ago, because I'm not sure what took me so long, but I finally signed up for this. He texted me 30 minutes later. He goes, I feel like this person's been spying on me my whole life. Because it's just that accurate. We are actually pretty predictable. And so to take that time, again, that link gets you free for 30 days. But to take that time to actually understand yourself and work through, again, that stress behavior. We're all in a season of stress right now. So how can you lead yourself better under a season of stress? So use that link, you get 30 days free.
So what happens then is you understand the dynamics between the two. You get really good. We have our foundational voice, which is usually the loudest voice to us, the one that makes the most sense. There's usually a secondary voice that helps, almost like a co-pilot. Sometimes it's the first three voices or the first two. The fifth voice is the one is totally the opposite of you. And the fourth voice is the one that you're actually unconsciously incompetent. You're clueless and you don't know it. But what we're doing here is showing the dynamics that if you're a connector, creative, or a creative connector, then the opposite is your guardian. You might be more peoples and values oriented, more future oriented. The guardian is processing, it's process oriented and decision making, systems logical. So that is me with my wife. That's the same. See, yours is a nurturer. Megan's a nurturer, right?
Yep.
So, but my wife is the total opposite of me, but she's a guardian nurturer. So that's a big difference versus the pioneer and the creative pioneer. The nemesis voice is the nurturer and vice versa. So when you start understanding those dynamics, you're like, oh my goodness, because it starts to play out now in true relational dynamics. And then you start thinking through your team, your family, your boss, recruiting, student athletes, coworkers. Like, for instance, you guys, I always thought I was a pioneer and I was writing the book. I'm a connector, creative pioneer, truly by nature. I can play pure pioneer, but not as well as connector, creative pioneer. Once I did, I settled into who I really was. Then I really got to know my family, my wife. She's a guardian nurturer. My daughter is a creative connector. My other daughter is a nurturer connector. My son is a guardian pioneer. And when I did that, it unlocked all of my communication, and my relationships became stronger with my kids and my wife because I started to value and understand them versus get frustrated by the basics. You carry that same thing out to the team. You start understanding who your boss is. You start understanding. So all of a sudden, you have a game plan through the five voices. It's a competitive advantage because if you know them almost better than they know themselves, you can help call them up. You can help them become a better version of themselves because you've seen the dynamics of who they really, really are versus who they're playing on TV. Thoughts on that?
And it's so, and this is difficult, right? Like, so don't hear us saying like this is just easy, that you've watched a webinar and you've mastered it. It's difficult, and most people don't do it. That's what we found in teams and organizations, because it's difficult, because people are emotional, they're moody, they have insecurities, and systems don't. Playbooks don't. So if we can adjust our system, that'll fix it. Like, well, we got to know our people better. And so the better you understand yourself, the better you understand what it's like to be on the other side of you. So for me as a connector, to lead a guardian, without thinking about it, I'm going to create stress for that person, because all they're going to hear is like, man, this guy never has it. He talks a lot, but he doesn't do anything, right? He's always talking about ideas, but there's not much execution. As I'm talking to a person who's all about execution, right, and details and structure. But if I know myself, know my tendencies, I can more intelligently lead myself. And if I know who I'm working with, who I'm leading, who I'm communicating with, well, now I can lead them and communicate with them more intelligently. And that, as Jeremy said, that becomes the competitive advantage. Championship culture is rooted in trust, which is rooted in healthy communication. And if you can make, we've seen teams, I mean, they've implemented the system, and it's like a light switch went on, and they win more games, they have less drama. The things they want to accomplish, they're actually able to accomplish.
And so if you're a coach, you have assistant coaches, and you look at all of the players and all of the student athletes and all of the people in your world. So for instance, you might be a mature leader as a coach, but you might have a good assistant coach who's immature or insecure, doesn't understand that they're a pioneer who is blowing up everyone, and those student athletes are dying. Those plants are shriveling up because the plants really need X amount of water and the coach is not giving any water. So, or conversely, you might have a coach who's overwatering some plants and wearing a student athlete out. So what we've done is we've taken the plant illustration and go, okay, this is a recruit. This is a student athlete who's not in your world. Well, they come from a culture is atmosphere. They came from a culture. Let's say that their coach was a guardian and had high expectations. The mom was a nurturer, and let's say the dad's a pioneer. The dad wants to win at all costs. The mom just wants the player to be taken care of. The past coach was really, really focused. And let's say the player is a creative. So all of a sudden, the player has visions of the future, but he can't fully explain it. And it doesn't seem like anyone understands the player. But if they know that you understand them, they're in. So what we found is most recruiting coaches do the same thing over and over again, which is the definition of insanity. So then they then have to have X number of players in to get X number of players or Y number of players. Well, what if you actually had a secret called personal and emotional intelligence, and you actually could learn, oh my goodness, yep, she's a nurturer, yep, he's a pioneer, oh wow, he's a connector. This young kid, he's excited about stuff, fun things, what's on campus, he wants other players to chat it up. Well, that's what a connector would do. Very different than what a guardian player would do. So what we're doing is we're giving secrets to recruiting. We're giving the secrets of how do you lead your own staff, how to deal with your boss, all designed and around knowing yourself to lead yourself and knowing the other person to lead the other person.
And again, it is a competitive advantage, right? Because if you can communicate, you communicate the right message the right way to the right person. and then there's no drama, then there's no mistrust, and you can actually get to work on winning, on making the donuts, on making progress, and you're not having to deal with all this disconnect. Because what typically happens is we lead people how we want to be led. We speak and hear out of our own voice, and even with good intent, there's a disconnect, right? So if I'm leading a guardian, again, I'm going to lead them how I want to be led. Well, no, we need to lead them how they need to be led, which shows them I value them and appreciate them, and I'm trying to give that communication a chance for success. And if we do that, relationships go up, influence go up, and life gets a whole lot easier.
So what questions do you have as we do this last? If you have a question, put it in the chat. But here's the last tool we have. It's basically the concept. And by the way, we use language, visual tools, and common language. So one of the actions we use is build the bridge. If you're a future-oriented voice, the problem is you see tomorrow and you see the future. And so it's like, oh yeah. Don't you see it? It's right over here. I mean, like my wife and I, we built a neighborhood of a modern farmhouse neighborhood, and people thought we were smoking when we laid out this vision. And they're like, I can't see it. So we had to build the bridge. We had to show them actual models, actual details, just to show them what could be. Well, the present-oriented voices, which is 73% of the population, they need to see that it's safe, and then they need to know what the plan is. Where a lot of the future-oriented voices lose people because they don't take the time to help build the bridge with the guardians and nurturers. So it's just some language that's really, really important to know. Kevin, did you get any comments or any questions that have come in?
Not yet, guys. Shoot us questions you have about the voices, about how to use them, anything that's on your mind around this idea. And I'll just keep talking about building the bridge. This has been so critical for me to learn, because as a future thinking voice, us pioneers, creative connectors, we just want to run, right? And we think the idea is good enough. To learn to slow down and because the guardians and nurturers, they want details, they want structure, and we often label guardians and nurturers as resistant. We label them as problems. We label them as trying to like cause drama. No, they're just trying, and sometimes maybe they are, but they're really just trying to get clarity. If we can take the time to answer their questions, hey, do you feel safe now? Do you feel like we have enough information? Do you feel like we have the resources? Do you feel like the plan is good enough? Man, they will go to work and make it unbelievable. And what I've started to do is I'll come to a guardian and say, hey, I have an idea. How do you think we do it? Like, let them play it at their best. Let them build the bridge, because they love building bridges. Say, I'm not quite sure how we get there, but I think we can get there. What do you think? How do you see us getting there? And let them go to town. It's like, that just makes them come alive. Wouldn't it make sense to build your team with diverse types of people? Yes. So if you have a team full of pioneers, you got a problem. A team full of connectors, you got a problem. And so you want diversity of voices, because you want people who are strong where you're naturally weak. You want people complementing your weaknesses, and you're going to do the same for them. The key in that then is to also have the security to listen to them. To say, hey, you don't see this how I see it. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're seeing, because I don't operate like you do. And to actually take in that information.
There's a system that we call it rules of team engagement, and it's the idea that you're letting nurturers go first, because what you're doing is you're building their strengths. So if you think about a leader, the job of a leader is to fight for the highest possible good of everyone they lead. So if you're fighting for the highest possible good, you want them to be the best they can be, because that helps the overall team. So if you have a nurturer, pull them up. If you have a guardian, help them become mature. If you have connectors, same way. If you have creatives, listen to their ideas. So you want all of those things. And it's really, really important. Go ahead. Question time.
Let's see. All right, we got a lot of questions coming in. This is great. If you're a guardian nurturer leader and you have a pioneer on your team, how can you get them to stay on the bridge and keep sharing their big ideas? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think it's really more, they're not going to stay on the bridge, but you can help them learn how to build a bridge. Like Kevin was saying, they don't build the bridge for the guardians and nurturers. You don't want to go, okay, we built the bridge. See, come on. No, you get them, and the way you do it is you start getting them to value the advice of the guardians. So work with the pioneer and create an advisory group and you get on the advisory group, get a guardian, get a nurturer, get a connector, any of the other voices that aren't represented there, and go, okay, here's the big idea. What questions do you have? Guys, we're going to let you in on some things we're thinking. We want your feedback because we value it. By doing that, they'll go back and what they'll do is they'll unlock the other guardians and nurturers, because a lot of the future-oriented voices have their foot on the gas. A lot of the guardians and nurturers simply put their foot on the brakes because they're like, hey, remember last year? Remember we lost Barbara because she fell in the, down the cliff because we didn't have a bridge? So they have long memories, and you have to help them. And the way you do it is you have to slow down to speed up. So what's been your experience in implementing this with 18 and 22-year-olds and how they engage with it? Oh my goodness. You've done more than me, but they love it.
They love it. They love it. Because think back, and my thing when I was doing this with a team just a couple of days ago, with a college team, and I said, I wish I would have had this at 21. I wish I would have had this at 19. I learned this way too late in life. Right? I figured this out at 34. I shouldn't say figured it out. Became a lot more aware of it at 34. I'm still figuring it out. But for them, it's such a game changer because then they start to see, oh, she's not a jerk. She's a pioneer. Oh, she's not attacking me. She actually does care. We actually both want the same thing. We're just going about it in different ways. And so we have story after story after story of teams at the high school level, college level, implementing this. And there's another question of, can you talk about how you implement it in a team setting with coaches, captains, team members? As you teach it to them, they will build the system. Guys, how do you think you can use this? And they'll we've had players put in their voice above their locker. We've got them putting it on a sticker on their practice helmet, on their jersey, whatever. And it becomes such a critical piece of their culture because language shapes culture. And it's really good for young people.
Kevin and I were able to work with a high school team, and they were down 0-3, and they were having infighting. And the coach found out the coach was a connector, wasn't as detailed, and his coordinators were both guardians. And so we helped really the impasse. And then the captains got everyone on the page, and there were two pioneers, a guardian pioneer and a pioneer captain. And they got everyone rallied, and literally they turned around, made it to the third round of the playoffs. Amazing story of team camaraderie because they started to know each other, and we took out the infighting and we focused on fighting for the highest possible good. So the platinum rule then is do unto others as they would want done to themselves. The golden rule is do unto others as you'd want done. A lot of times what happens is coaches will go, I don't need a hug. Why should he? I didn't get training. Why should they? So the platinum rule is do unto others as they would want done. And it's a competitive advantage for those teams who really, really get it.
When you think about the sports world, and this is true in a lot of worlds, but the sports world, I'm the coach. Like that's the end. Why are we doing it? Because I said so. I'm the coach. I'm the boss. Do what I say. Well, that doesn't work in today's world. That may work for a little bit, but over the long run, that's not going to work. If you want to build a culture of consistent success, you have to know your people, and for you to know them, to know their personality, for you to lead better out of your personality. Now says, oh, now I can follow you. Now I want to follow you because you've made the decision in the effort to connect with me, to explain things to me. And when you get that, when you go from compliant to committed, like it's a game changer for teams. And so it's asking the question, like, what kind of team do you want to have? You want a team that just does what you says just because, which is not going to last very long? Or do you want a team that's actually committed to the vision and they will fight for each other and they'll fight to get better? And so you don't have to pull, right? You get to lead and share vision and connect, and they do all the heavy lifting because culture is truly built from the bottom up. But we've got to create a system where that can actually happen. Other questions?
And so what we've done, sorry, what was that, Kim?
I was like, see if any other questions.
So what we've done is basically we've created this concept. It's almost like Peloton meets Netflix. And if you think about everyone streaming and they're watching content, we've created series and all types of content, but it's done in a Peloton style. And we're about to add a whole new team dynamic to the dashboard where you can actually know your voice, but you can put your team on there and know their voice. And together you start using it. And then we have something called a Team 360. where you can actually then take an assessment to find out, hey, is our team weak around communication, around relationship, around alignment, around execution or capacity? So you know your voice and you know your team effectiveness, and all of a sudden you go from a 68 or 72 to an 89 or 94. And so that's what it is. So if you just go to giant.tv/culturewins, again, try it on. You can see it. It's very inexpensive for teams. And it's a great system for you to start putting content and the concepts into the water stream of your team.
And we've been onboarding college teams, right? To get this, when you think of this remote season, workshops are a little more difficult. Seminars are a little more difficult. Conventions aren't happening. How do you scale self-awareness? How do you scale culture? How do you empower your people to get better over their morning cup of coffee, over their lunch break, on a Saturday evening, where you give them content that they can consume whenever it makes sense for them, but everyone's consuming the same content. So you get that language from the top to the bottom of the organization where everyone gets to play and everyone actually starts to come alive. And it's really powerful to see. It's really fun to see. And that is the competitive advantage of the next season, not just being like the next sports season, but this next wave of life. It's culture. Like, culture is the competitive advantage, people intelligence, and you build an invincible team by knowing each other. I can't truly fight for the team and communicate with the team and lead the team if I don't know them or know myself. So this is our information. You guys have questions, again, go check out the platform. It's free for 30 days with that link, by the way. This is where you can find us. This is my cell phone number and my email. So if you guys have questions, you want to chat more, we do sessions on this for teams all the time. I've done 4 this week. So it's a fun system, but it's a really powerful system, not just for you and your team, but for you and your family, you and your community. It truly helps you kind of come alive and become a leader worth following and live up to your best. Jeremy, any last thoughts?
I think the idea is that you get an opportunity to be at your best when you can know yourself as deeply as possible. For me, when I got comfortable with who I really am versus trying to be something that I wasn't, I settled in. And so I just go, guys, this is the time to learn and grow in knowing yourself, then teaching it to other people. And that's the beauty. You can leverage Kevin, you can leverage us, and you can also learn it, because what we created is simple enough that everyone can play, even an educated 13-year-old. And it's scalable and it's sustainable. It's a system that is not a one and done. And that's why we built it. And that's why we created it. And so we have so many different resources that can help.
Like this is the platform, guys, just showing you again, there's a whole series on 5 voices. So you can take the assessment and you can have your coaching channel, right, which are these down here, but that you can watch the whole series, going through the details of each voice, a development plan for your voice, weapons for your voice, how to engage, all on the platform. So again, highly recommend, check it out. If you're married, watch it with your spouse, understand yourself better, start to watch it with your team. We appreciate you guys. We did record this. So to answer that question, I'm recording this. I'll put out a link later on and get that to you guys if you're in the email. Appreciate you guys. Stay well. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.